Hey everyone, I'm Shane, and I'm so happy that you're here as we start a brand new series today that's called The Comeback Kid. You know, some of the greatest, most impactful stories are those about the resiliency of the human spirit, the ability for people to survive extreme circumstances and overcome obstacles. We all love to see the underdog win or to see people succeed after facing setbacks. Comeback stories are some of the closest things that we get to fairy tale endings in real life. Take the company Apple, for instance. Super smart business people, they got together and they created a tech business. They made it possible for people to use computers in their everyday lives during a time when most computers took up an entire wall in a factory or an office building. Things were going so great with Apple's inventions until they tried to make computers even more portable. Their first try at doing this was a complete and total failure. The computers were awful. In fact, Apple lost a ton of money and even more credibility. But without that first failure, Apple could have never learned the lesson that allowed them to come back with something as game-changing as the iPhones and iPads that we see all over the place now. Or take Olympic gymnast Simone Biles. She's widely considered the greatest of all time. And a lot of you have probably heard of her, but listen to a bit of her amazing comeback story. At one point in her career, she actually had to step out of the Olympics after experiencing mental and physical setbacks that prevented her from competing. But she worked really hard for years so that she could compete at her previous level, and she finally made a comeback in the 2024 Olympics. Then there's also the comeback story of a kid from many years ago who was born into an ordinary small town. He grew up with siblings and went to synagogue just like any other regular Jewish kid. He eventually started teaching about God, he became really popular, and he gave everything up. But then he made a comeback that changed everything. And that comeback is the reason that we celebrate Easter around this time of year. You have any guesses about who I'm talking about? Yeah, of course, it's Jesus. Jesus' comeback was quite a bit different from Apple or Simone Biles. I mean, after all, Jesus and all that he would experience was part of God's plan from the very beginning, but Jesus' comeback was so big that people have been following him for thousands of years, and it's why we're still talking about him today. Like Apple and Simone Biles, and most importantly, Jesus, we love a comeback story because it shows us that sometimes what feels impossible can be possible. But more than that, maybe we love a good comeback story because we all experience times when we feel like we need a comeback. Maybe that's where you're at right now. Maybe you're in the middle of a situation that's difficult and you feel like you need a miracle for things to get better. Maybe you're fighting with your friend and you wonder if your relationship will ever go back to the way that it was before. Maybe you're struggling with loss or conflict and you don't know if everything will turn out okay. Maybe your grades are dropping, and if you don't have a comeback on your next test, you might not pass the class. Now, on the other side of this, maybe you feel like everything is going well, but you still sense that something is missing. Maybe you got the new haircut and you thought that everyone would love it, but you don't really feel like a new you after that haircut. Or maybe your crush likes you back, but you thought it would make you feel differently than you do right now. Or maybe just your life generally is going well, but you keep looking for the advice or the morning routine or the workout plan that will help you become the new and improved you. Look, at some point, we all reach this spot in life where we hope for our own comeback. And that feeling, that's nothing new. This actually happened to a family many years ago that we can read about in the Bible today. When we step into their story, we find them experiencing a really difficult tragedy. Jesus was friends with a family of siblings, a pair of sisters and a brother, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. While Jesus was traveling and teaching people in a different area, he got word that Lazarus was extremely sick. Things were not looking good, but Jesus ultimately knew how things would end. And he knew that through what was about to happen, people would get to see his power and discover who he really was. So, instead of rushing to his friend's side, Jesus stayed where he was for a couple of days before traveling to see Lazarus and his sisters. By the time Jesus finally began traveling to his friend's home, Lazarus had died. In fact, he had already been dead for 4 days. And his two sisters, Mary and Martha, were grieving with their community. When they had heard that Jesus was finally arriving, one of the sisters stayed at the house while the other sister, Martha, met him outside to talk. Let's read what Martha said. "Lord," Martha said to Jesus, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." Basically, Martha was honest with Jesus about her disappointment. She was upset that Jesus didn't show up before Lazarus died, but she also believed that Jesus would provide the comeback that she was hoping for. What's so great about Martha is that even in her sadness and her grief, she still had faith. She still trusted Jesus and believed in what he could do. So look at what happens next. Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus' response to her was unbelievable. It was unbelievable because he said that Lazarus would live again. Now, we can tell from what she says that she knew this would happen because it was something that her family believed would happen in the future. But Jesus was talking about something a little different. He clarified what he meant by saying this. Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die." Do you believe this? Okay, this is a really big deal. Jesus was basically saying that, yeah, the resurrection that you believe in is actually because of me. Jesus was telling Martha that she could place her hope in him. And did you catch this? Jesus said that he is the resurrection and the life. He said that present tense. Jesus was saying that hoping in him wasn't just about some future outcome, but instead something that he was doing in the present, right then and there. Because of Jesus, Martha could have hope that there could be life even after death. She could have hope that sadness isn't forever, grief isn't forever, and that Jesus is working for our good in every situation. And here's what I don't want you to miss. That wasn't just true for Martha. It's true for you and for me too. Jesus is the person who gives us hope. Jesus basically told Martha that even though she was heartbroken and sad over losing her brother, because of Jesus, she could have hope. And he ended the statement by asking her if she believed his words. And she actually goes on to say, yes, but hang on, this isn't the end of the story. Jesus didn't just say that he is the resurrection. He actually proved that he could bring life by raising Lazarus back from the dead. What? The guy had been dead for 4 days, but then he came back to life. Talk about a comeback. Through this miracle, Jesus showed Martha that her hope could be placed in him. Jesus proved that even when things felt hopeless, she could trust him for a comeback. The good news is, you can too. Now, look, I want to be really clear. It doesn't mean that someone will come back to life or a situation will change right away, but Jesus is still the person that we can put our hope in. We can trust that Jesus is with us in the middle of every situation and that he's there to help us through anything that we face. So, what does that mean for us? How does knowing that Jesus is the resurrection and the life change how we live? We can have hope in Jesus that first, he's working for our good no matter the situation. And also that he wants to give us an abundant, or another way to say that is a full life. We can have hope that he's with us when we face setbacks. And we can believe that comebacks are possible. When we believe this, it actually changes how we live. If we believe that Jesus can restore friendships, it changes how we work through conflict. If we believe Jesus is with us in difficult situations, it actually changes how we experience comfort and peace. If we believe that Jesus can forgive us, it changes how we forgive ourselves and how we can take steps to become the best versions of who we are. If we believe that Jesus wants to give us a full life, it changes how we follow him even when things are difficult. Now again, let me just say that putting our hope in Jesus doesn't make everything go perfectly in our lives. It doesn't mean that bad things will never happen or that we'll never get hurt. We'll still experience drama and loss and setbacks because unfortunately, those are just a part of being human. But since Jesus is the ultimate comeback kid, we can trust him to help us experience our own comebacks too. So the question is, do you believe this? Do you believe that you can put your hope in Jesus? What areas of your life need a comeback, and what would it look like for you to hope in Jesus for that comeback? Now, here's the reality. Martha knew Jesus personally. They were friends, they shared meals together, and had history. So for Martha, her friendship with Jesus is what built her trust in him. More than likely, she had probably seen him do miracles before, so she trusted him to do them again. But for us, it's sometimes a little more difficult to trust Jesus. I mean, he isn't physically in the room with us, and it takes time for us to build a relationship with him. That's part of why small groups are so important. In our groups, we can remind each other of the ways that we've seen Jesus working in our lives, and we can remind each other why we can hope in Jesus. And in the next few weeks, we'll actually keep exploring this idea together. We'll explore why we can trust Jesus, the ultimate comeback kid. But for now, when you head to groups, think about your answer to this question. Where in life could you use a little hope right now?